Here's a fun exercise. Let's ask ChatGPT some stuff. Do you want me to ask the ChatGPT where the data came from for the 3-point turn and the incident? Right, let me grab the data first because it's going to want that data all the way from the top again. So I'm going to say I have some Techstream. No, I have some Toyota. Just got to spell it right. Toyota Lexus 570 data. And I want to analyze, which system, which logging system the data came from. Okay. To determine which logging system the data came from, we need to analyze specific characteristics of the data set, the data structure and format, the logging frequency, event triggers and available parameters, and a timestamp analysis. It's going into a lot more detail how it will do it. So if you upload the data set, I can run a detailed analysis. So here's the first data set. So this is the incident data set. This data set appears to be from a Toyota Lexus vehicle logging system. Yeah, I just told you that. Likely from Techstream or a similar diagnostic tool. Given the column names in the data structure, the timestamp and logging frequency, which is the EVCH time, and the gear position and neutral logging, the brake activation and longitudinal G-force, and then the he says if this were the EDR crash log, it would have a very short pre-crash window, not a long sequence like this. Capture only a few seconds before and after an impact. So it's not EDR crash log data. Steering and lateral G-force. Final verdict. This is likely to be Techstream or similar diagnostic data. So this is probably what you would get as a mechanic, for example, trying to get the information from a mechanic, essentially.
Yes, it's not even the actual data that we would normally look at after an event.
Right. This data set has all the hallmarks of Techstream logging, including 0.5 second time intervals, continuous gear and brake data, vehicle speed, RPM, and accelerator inputs, steering and G-force data, which are common in diagnostic logs, long duration during which EDR does not do, long duration recording, which EDR does not do. Would this be aftermarket logging? If not Techstream, it could be from an aftermarket OBD tool, logging tool. I'm getting confused with my language again. Some third-party tools like ScanGauge, Carista, or Talk Pro can record similar parameters. However, Toyota's proprietary formatting suggests it's more likely from Techstream.
How about this? Ask it if it can tell if this is a standard log or if it can tell the difference, or if it can tell if, let's say, somebody just grabbed other data to try to make it look like Techstream data. Can it tell the difference?
Let's say,
you know what I mean? Like, would a car normally do these things?
let me say, if it's Techstream data, if Techstream is the source, if Techstream is the source, does this data set, represent a complete log as expected from the text stream. How's that?
Yeah, because if I was Trevor Paul and I was told, if you want to keep your job, you need to make us a report that looks real, uh, I would do that. I would literally look at past logs, assuming that I can't use, because obviously Karen's is just going to be all normal going forward, going backwards, like parking, you know.
Right.
So I would likely pull
She's
from another.
not going to trigger an event. She won't trigger an event like that's going to be recorded because she's just driving normally, as you
When I
say.
understand, I can see why I would say recognize that it's not. So this EDR event data recorder, doesn't it say in the manual that it just triggers when it hits a certain threshold, and then that because it's capturing what likely happened right around an event, like a crash event. Otherwise, you're probably
Well,
looking like.
what it will do is it will start out by learning your driving patterns, and then over a period of time it knows your throttle pressure and the way that you use your brakes and all of that stuff. It learns that within like the first week that you own the car, essentially. Like you can just disconnect your battery and reconnect your battery and that will reset it. So it'll start learning how you drive your car. It only takes a couple of drives for that, for the entire system to go right. We're tuned into your driving. As soon as something happens outside of the normal patterns of your driving, that's what will trigger the events. But the crash log data is different.
I think I
When the
remember
airbags,
being on a stream of yours a long time ago, and I think you said the memory in this is non-volatile. In other words, it's even if it loses battery, it doesn't necessarily lose its memory. Is that
yeah,
one of the chips?
right. So there's different chips that do different things, and so the chips that are learning your driving behavior, those are being stored in a different area, let's say, of storage. That stuff is going to be written and rewritten and written and over periods of
Sure, it'll be fine-tuned
learning.
over a period of time.
Right, and then there's the permanent storage where well, it's not totally permanent. It's still got its limits, but there's another area where it would record like crash data events and other types of events. So there's two different sort of storage locations for that information. They might actually be on the same chip, but they're allocated differently depending on what the chips are recording, if that makes sense. And the CAN bus also, just to clarify, the CAN bus doesn't record anything. It just makes inquiries from those units. It'll ask, depending on how you have it set up, but you can just set it up so that it only triggers on certain types of events, for example, which Toyota has a set sort of pattern how they want it to record things essentially. So but yeah, the CAN bus doesn't have its own memory. It's just asking from the other units that do store things in memory, what do we know about this triggered event and what do we know about that triggered event? And then it pulls it up sort of in a report fashion. So anyway, the question, if the text stream is the source, does this data set represent a complete log as expected from the text stream? So it's going to go and have a look and analyze whether or how TechStream typically logs data. So the expected data completeness in TechStream logs would capture all the key cycle events, start, drive, stop, include expected parameters, speed, RPM, shift position, brake position, maintain constant timestamp intervals, which we don't have here, typically 5 seconds 0.5 seconds for real-time monitoring and not have missing data points or irregularities. 2 potential issues with completeness in your data set. Here's what I found in your data set. Consistencies with Techstream logging. It found the 0.05 second sampling interval is consistent. The key parameters are recorded, matching which Techstream logs. The gradual positions in speed, braking, and RPM indicate continuous vehicle operation. The potential issues in completeness, so that's what it notices is right about the data, but this is what it found wrong about the data. It found a lot more wrong. The potential issues were missing key cycle, which is what we all said,
Mm-hmm.
or ignition state, EVCH, time resets, or irregularities. So it starts at 1137.55 seconds instead of 0. This suggests that either a portion of the log is missing, earlier data is cut off. Techstream was started mid-session, meaning the data set may not cover the entire trip. Techstream was disconnected and reconnected, causing a reset.
Yeah, in other
So
words,
I
it's
didn't
just
know
yet
that.
another piece of inconsistent data that on at face value it may have just passed the test, but when you dig into it, as in a murder case where you need to, obviously it's not passing the smell test here.
Yeah, exactly.
I switched
That's,
headphones. I saw these other headphones are kind of older. Um,
yeah, we were getting a lot of background noise. It's much better on the headphones. So there you go, phone's mum fixed.
yeah, I
So
realized that I could pop the chat open.
you found it. So I don't use a phone to access it, so I don't even know where that is. But a lot of people say to me, "Where's the chat?" And I'm like, "Isn't there a button there to press
Yeah, so it's
the
literally
chat?"
just three tabs. Like,
Okay.
yeah,
So number 3, total time column duplication. What duplication? There are 2 total time second columns, possible formatting or logging. Wow, inconsistency. Techstream usually does not duplicate column names. This might indicate a manual data merge or a partial extraction. Dun, dun,
of
dun.
course. That's what I always suspect. I mean, it's it's in an Excel spreadsheet. Like, uh,
There, duh.
well, I think it might have been you that showed us at some point earlier, maybe on a different day, what real data looks like with all the time columns. I know somebody's showed a picture of a text stream that has the.
Yeah, I can actually ask ChatGPT to show me one if you like, what it's supposed to look like. So, to pull something from a real world event or whatever and show us. So, we can do that next. So, the potential data gaps. The data set appears continuous, but some values change abruptly. Brake and oil pressure jumps significantly. Accelerator opening ratio goes from 0 to 63% in one step. So that should have been gradual, obviously, if it was going to be measured in half seconds.
Yeah, earlier this year, I
Gear
remember just taking some of the data and doing the calculations and showing, let's see, according to Trooper Paul, um,
Yeah, yeah,
this, if Karen had, first of all, I don't think that vehicle could literally get up to that speed, up to 24 miles an hour in reverse in 62 feet. And
right,
it would have basically sent John into a low Earth orbit.
exactly. So it goes on to say the data set appears continuous, but there are value. Oh, I said all that. Gear shifts occur without neutral position, which Techstream often does log. And if data is missing, this could mean selective logging or trimming. And 3, possible explanations for an incomplete log. Techstream was not running for the entire key cycle. The log was manually edited or extracted, potentially omitting later portions. Techstream buffer size limits. Yeah, I don't think there was any buffer size limits on it, but that is a possibility, I guess. And selective data collection. Final assessment, is this a complete Techstream log? Unlikely to be complete. So now I'm going to give it the second data set and ask it the same set of questions. It gives me some other things that we can do to it, but we'll come back to that. I'm going to say,
I forget what were the different exhibits supposed to show.
the exhibit we just put in is the actual incident. Hang on, let me double check which one it is. It's what Trooper Paul says is the actual incident where the car increased to 24.2 miles per hour in reverse and hit John O'Keefe.
Right.
So now I'm going to do the same thing. I have another data set which is claimed to be, whoops, let's get my spelling right, which is claimed to be 8 minutes. Is it earlier or later? I forget. 8 minutes earlier, which is claimed to be 8 minutes earlier. It's going to say, why is there a gap? Where's the 8 minutes that are missing? I already know that because I asked it that yesterday, but we'll continue with the exercise. So to do that, I just need to edit this so that I'm only uploading that one piece of data. So this is the 6.6252 to 62 seconds data. I'm going to analyze them, see if they form a continuous Techstream log or if there are missing segments. I'm going to look at timestamp gaps, seamless data transitions, key event alignments, and evidence of data manipulation. So it's doing its analyzing thing. Trooper Paul, hey Scotty, by the way, Trooper Paul, the crime scene whisperer and stuff, horrid at math, and he never heard of kinematics, but he is allowed as an expert by Auntie Bev because he has a badge. Yeah, exactly. Exactamundo.
I loved during that. I can't remember if the extra spicy happened. Wasn't it when AJ was basically voir diring him? He got extra spicy.
I thought it was all spicy. It was all wonderfully spicy.
Like like
Did he get one nude? I don't remember.
oh
I don't remember.
because I think I want to say that it was a Friday and they were trying to um oh they had a new picture of the Traverse that didn't show the tire moving and
Oh,
and
yeah,
so um and then so of course Jackson was pissed. So the compromise was okay. You can flatter him about it, and then he can testify. I think on Monday or Tuesday, whatever the next time he was there. And
right.
but it you could tell it was like AJ just goes, okay, but look at our video. This is the one you gave us, and it moves.
Yeah.
So it's like, what'd you do? Just freeze the frame? Like I know he didn't say that, but he wanted to. But then
Yeah.
obviously you knew after knowing after seeing the Crash Daddies, and then you look at Trooper Paul, like I, the guy. I mean,
Right.
do you have a degree in kinematics? Tell tell me what kinematics is. I mean, he's like, well, it just did.
The cross-examination was beautiful. I thoroughly enjoyed it.
Oh, and then of course my all-time favorite meme videos of when Dr. Wolf was getting on the stand and that's so they're twirling her glasses, just totally awestruck. Like, hey, who's this young hottie?
So we got a result now. It says the time gap between the two data sets is 474.75 seconds, approximately 7 minutes and 55 seconds. Not quite 8 minutes, but almost there. The time gap is close to the claimed 8 minutes, but it's not exact. There are no continuous transitions in vehicle speed, RPM, or other parameters between the last row of the earlier dataset and the first row of the latest dataset. There are no continuous transitions in vehicle speed, revs per minute, or other parameters. Interesting. I didn't pick that up before.
Well, yeah, because you think
Oh,
about if you think about the slices in time, because I think each column is like a slice in time, and then you think, okay, well, what would you expect to see? You would expect to see gradual changes between each data point. You wouldn't see this drastic change, except for possibly
yeah.
the getting on.
If they showed if they showed the whole 8 minutes and not cherry picked the first, 600 seconds and then the next, 10 seconds from the earlier part and then 10 seconds from the later part. If they had just showed that whole stream through that whole entire key cycle, just to prove, like, because then it would be discoverable to defense. Like, I mean, this whole thing should have been discoverable to defense, not his Excel spreadsheets, but the whole thing that he drew it from should have been given to defense.
Right.
The fact that it hasn't is question mark already. So, but even if he had showed that there's a continuous stream between those 2 seconds, and then said, "Here's what I extracted from that. Here's the earlier snippet, and here's the earlier 10 seconds, the later 10 seconds." If it had done it that way, then the jury might be actually more confident that he recorded that whole 8 minutes, including the 10 seconds at either end. So,
Was he
but
trying
he
to say that
didn't.
that was the drive from the waterfall?
No, he's trying to say these two pieces of data are the 3 point turn,
Oh,
and then the 8 minutes in between is after the 3 point turn. This is the bit that's missing. After the 3 point turn, pulling up out the front of 34 Fairview, and then snap. We're into the incident where the 10 seconds where she reversed into him. But he hasn't shown us the data in between, so we can't be sure that data is correct. But
and there's obviously no timestamp as to when those events occurred, right?
exactly, he hasn't tied any timestamps to it. Key findings: the time gap is close to the 8 minutes claimed. Oh, I read that part. Yeah. So number 3, no recorded data in the gap. If this is from Techstream, it suggests that either Techstream logging was stopped and restarted after 8 minutes. So the Techstream logging could have been the issue, which I doubt. That's the functionality of the Techstream. Selective logging, which is what the Techstream is told to log by Toyota, or missing data, meaning something occurred in the gap that was not recorded.
Can you
Would
ask
you
it
like me
is can you ask it if is it possible that this entire data set is fabricated?
Yep, I can ask that. Is it possible if these two data sets are fabricated? Now, I will add here, just to be
Or
clear,
made to look legit?
since they are both Excel spreadsheets. and not actual Techstream data. Fix up some spelling mistakes here. Is it possible, if these two data sets are fabricated, is it possible that these two data sets are fabricated, since they are both Excel spreadsheets and not actual original Techstream data? Yes, it is possible that these data sets are fabricated or selectively edited, since they are in Excel format rather than the raw Techstream log files, which the defense still doesn't have access to. We need to analyze several key factors to determine if the data has been altered. 1. Indicators of fabrication or editing. A lack of raw Techstream metadata. No metadata. B, the time gaps and missing data. The 7-minute, 55-second gap is suspicious. Was Techstream manually paused? If Techstream was logging continuously, there should be no large gaps. If the gaps exist, this missing portion could be investigated, possible deletion of crucial events. C, repetitive or unusual patterns. In real Techstream logs, sensor values fluctuate naturally. If data has been fabricated, acceleration, braking, RPM may show unnatural smoothness, repeated or copy-pasted values, abrupt inconsistencies in timestamps that don't exist, or unrealistic transitions between gears. Difference from real Techstream formatting. Techstream typically uses consistent delimiter styles. If column names don't exactly match Techstream's output, it suggests manual reconstruction. If the duplicate time column is suspicious, this formatting mistake is unlikely in a direct Techstream export. And missing neutral gear in some positions. You previously noted that some data sets don't log the neutral position while others do. This inconsistency suggests that data was either edited or came from different logging conditions. Next step, verifying the authenticity. Check for unnatural data patterns. Compare a real Techstream export.
Mm-hmm.
I don't have an original to do that. Look for inconsistencies. How about you produce one for me? Let's ask it to do that. Can you produce an example?
I can just see it now. Trooper Paul's taking notes. It's like, holy cow. Yes, show me how to use ChatGPT to fabricate the segment.
Can you produce an example Techstream data output from real world scenarios?
Oh, just
Scenarios.
tell it, it, I guess, drawing from the previous data as a kind of a baseline. Um, See if you can create what a 3-point turn would look like.
Oh, we did that yesterday. Yes, I can do that.
Oh, cool.
Let me ask this.
I didn't realize that.
Can
All right, I guess I forgot. That's cool.
No, I didn't show it in my video because it was just going to make the video too long.
Oh, okay.
I was trying to stay within everybody's attention span because I spent 3 hours quizzing ChatGPT yesterday and then another 4 hours the day before. So I wasn't going to make videos that long. So
Oh, trust me. I
uh,
live in Sacramento, California. I'm on the West Coast. I'm 3 hours away from time zone wise from Massachusetts, and I've had a few friends like, man, you're really interested in uh, criminal trial that's happening on the other side of the country. It's like, yeah,
right,
but it's, but it could be us. It could be any one of us.
could be any one of us exactly.
It's intriguing.
So before we go on to that, I'm going to ask it, can you produce an example Techstream data output from real world scenarios so we can see the difference?
Yeah, because you would expect it to be smooth.
Right.
I mean, unless you're driving like Yep.
It's going to do it in CSV format, so I will have to switch screens to put this on the screen in a spreadsheet
Or
format. So
you could just the next prompt. Can't you just say, please just display this for me in a cleaned up columns or presentable or something like that?
yeah, hang on. It's only a couple of rows, so
Or make this human readable.
can you put this in a table on screen?
Because technically, remember you're not talking to a real person. You can't. It can infer a lot. I mean, you could
Right.
just say, make it presentable. Damn it! I'm just kidding.
Speak of the English. God damn it. Here we go. We've got a table. So I should be able to. There we go. All right. So obviously we don't have a record number, but we have time in seconds, and that's what we need to see. Since the key cycle started,
Mm-hmm.
what's logging the vehicle speed. So I mean, trooper pulls is not in columns like this; it's in rows, but essentially. The vehicle speed in kilometers per hour, the engine revs,
Oh, that's
and
right. It's
then
going from left to right instead of top to bottom.
yeah,
Because typically
um,
data is logged in because you don't, especially when you have a continuous stream of data, it's going to be vertical, not horizontal.
no, not necessarily. I think it is actually recorded in rows on the text stream.
It can. Oh, okay.
Um,
Okay.
yeah, I think it is.
I guess.
And there's a reason for it, but I forget the reason. There's a reason for it. I forget what the reason is, but there's a in any spreadsheet software, there's the option to turn it
Sure.
around, so back to rows again, columns again.
That makes sense.
So the shift position, which is shown here as park drive, but I would expect an actual value in there of 0 for neutral, 1 for park, 1 for
Yeah. Wait a minute.
drive.
It got on to us about saying that. Well, it's missing, or maybe it was something that you observed. Like, hey,
It was something I observed, but yeah, it's still saying it would show us that these positions were shifted. The brake pressure, so I will ask it next because I want to see this same table in a demonstrative 3-point turn. So the steering angle, um,
well, and
normal.
you made a good observation earlier or yesterday that the steering wheel always goes further than the wheel. Um, so
Right,
in and
right. Here's the two columns we're missing. We're missing that this was a key cycle, what key cycle this was on,
mm-hmm.
and we're missing what the session was for this record. So I didn't know that it records a session because Trooper Ball left those out.
Well,
If he'd
remember
have left
what was the
with,
argument that AJ was getting Trooper Paul to talk about? It was like he kept going, like he started mumbling, but wasn't it something about, well, you can have a key cycle without an engine cycle or something like that, or it's like,
yeah, but you know what he was talking about? He was confusing the issue,
yeah,
like purposely. He's talking about if you've actually got a set of keys that you put in the ignition when you turn it to accessories and turn it off again, that would not be a key cycle and it wouldn't record it as a key cycle. That's what he was talking about. But the problem with that theory is Karen's car doesn't have keys. She's only got a button. She she's a toggle button. So you press it to turn the car on and you press it to turn the car off. I don't know, to be honest. I don't know how you activate accessories power without the engine in this particular car because I don't own a Lexus, so
I mean,
I don't know
most
how.
of the time, it's if your foot's on the brake and you hit power, it starts the car. But if your foot's not on the brake, then it just turns on.
Right, there you go. There you go. Something I didn't know about that style of ignition. Because I have, oh my God, I just screwed up. I have a older model Toyota, much older. I do have the ECU
Hmm.
units in my car. I've actually got a few aftermarket ones added because I converted my vehicle over to gas. Well, it actually runs both. It runs fuel, petrol, and gas. So, you guys call that stuff different? Hang on, petrol. What do you call petrol? You've called petrol gas.
Oh, right.
We call
And you probably call it natural gas.
right. So we call gas LPG or natural gas
Gotcha.
LPG or liquefied gas,
You,
and then we call what you call gas. We call petrol.
you know, it's funny. I years ago I taught in a past life. I taught. I was a pilot knowledge ground instructor, and I was teaching at a flight school that had Chinese students. So they came from a college in China, like our in the U.S. We have all the general aviation to be able to do flight training, and they don't have that in China. And there was a student that had I didn't realize they wanted to air up their basketball, but he came up to me without the basketball in his hand, and he said, "Where can I get gas?" And I didn't realize that it was a lost in translation. His word for air called it gas, and so
uh,
I'm like, wait, why do you need? Well, I'm just trying to think of where the nearest gas station was.
Tracy, I think, is agreeing with you. With toggle ignition, you don't put foot on brake and push button, goes to accessory, not start engine, then push again to turn off. Thank you. Like I said, I don't own one of those vehicles, so thanks for filling us in.
Well, so I went to school in Oklahoma, and Oklahoma, in the middle of the country, everything's simpler there. Car registration is cheap. Um, when when I moved back to California, um, I had to sell my car because it needed like $2,000 worth of catalytic converters, like the sensors that were more expensive than the car was even worth. But
Yeah.
Oklahoma didn't care. But it's like,
Yeah, that happens.
but in California, you used to be able like, I think registration here is so expensive, and you used to be able to. There was like a running. It was like 30. Like if your car was 30 years old, then you didn't have to get smog checked. And then at some point
Right.
they stopped it, so it's like forever like a 70s model car. That
Yep.
like so the older cars sometimes are better to have. Well, and especially with all the I probably would use a hammer to solve that pop-up problem if I was getting ads every time I came to a stop.
Right. Exactly. So now we have a simulated Techstream data. So I'm going to quickly open this with numbers and then switch it around to Trooper Paul's data and then compare the two so we can see what that looks like. So let me switch this from rows to columns first. Table transpose so that it looks like Trooper Paul's data. And then pull this open a little wider so we can see everything. And then share this as a screen. This is
uh, I was watching an older like a week or two old stream about Lally trying to cross-examine Dr. Wolf. Like
yeah.
I just couldn't get over the fact, like, yeah, but did you know that there was like I know he said, did you know there was a glass found or something like that? But I mean, it's as literally as dumb as saying, but did you know that there was a cat in the yard? Like, what? You know
Right,
what I mean? Like
right.
something completely like, look, I used the physics to compare, you know, this car didn't crash into John. John didn't get hit by a car. It's as simple as that.
So here's an example reverse a 3-point turn maneuver.
Is that your example?
That
Your Chat GPT?
this is the Chat GPT example. I've just opened it in numbers and turned it into
To look
rows instead of columns so that it
nice.
matches more like Trooper Paul's
See,
records. So if we look across the gear
mm-hmm,
shifts, you see we go from park, we go in. This is 25 seconds.
okay,
Sorry,
mm-hmm,
no record numbers. 12 seconds. That's showing us that it's 12 seconds long. Both of Trooper Paul's examples were 10 seconds long. So this is a typical maneuver in a 10-second period, well,
mm-hmm,
12-second period.
sure,
So we go from park to drive, half a second, half a second, half a second. Then we go to neutral to reverse, because in this car it has to pass through neutral to get to
mm-hmm,
reverse. These are depicted as numbers in Trooper Paul. So I think it's 1 for drive, 2 for reverse, 0 for neutral in his data. But anyway, reverse, 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 then to neutral to go forwards again, drive, 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 and then to neutral for the third drive, 2, 3, 4. This is 5 maneuvers.
where's the steering wheel deflection?
The steering deflection is this column here. So it says 15 degrees
Mm-hmm.
to 30 degrees to 45, and then back to 30 and 15, and then back to 0.
Yeah, and wasn't Trooper Paul's like 4 degrees or something?
-4 degrees. So this is in the positive direction, which I think is right. So then it goes into reverse, and then it goes left, -15, 30, 45, back to 35, 15, and 0. And then it's back in drive again. So now it's going 15, 30, 45, 30. So those are the sharp steering angles that ChatGPT said we would expect to see if it was doing that kind of maneuver. Whether it was a 3-point or a 2-point turn doesn't really matter. We're still going to expect these same sort of degrees in angle, for example.
Well, yeah, because the wheels have to turn, otherwise
Right,
the if the steering wheel is not turned very much, then it's going to be a big gigantic maneuver.
right. And then the longitudinal G forces, which is essentially, what sort of G force is going to be exhibited, but it's either rocking, as Gracie explained, it's either yaw or pitch or forwards and backwards kind of rocking, which creates a longitudinal G force.
Yeah,
And that's one that you would measure whether there was enough G force to actually impact a human being and hurt them. So, and it was one that we focused on that longitudinal G-force frequently in all of the demonstrations that I did, because that's the one that you would focus on if you wanted to prove it hit somebody. So there would be a sudden stop or there'd be something that was sudden, not gradual like this. So you can see that it goes gradually up, gradually down, whilst it's doing this maneuver, because it's a controlled maneuver. Whereas if it was a sudden stop, like she slammed the brakes on, because in Trooper Paul's scenario, she had to have slammed the brakes on, obviously, because according to them, there's a freaking Jeep in the way. So, she had to slam the brakes on. But the data set that they showed didn't demonstrate that the brakes had been used at all. Oh, you're not even seeing my data on the
No, I
screen.
can see it.
Oh, you can.
Well, yeah, it looks amazing.
Okay, I'm not seeing the data at my end. I don't know why that is. But where were we? Back to the ChatGPT. That's the example data that it gave us, and it's nothing like the data that Trooper Paul has showed us. Okay, so now we can go back to the ChatGPT screen and ask it to compare these. Now that we've got the simulated 3-point turn, which data set was it again? Data set. So the earlier one was a 3-point turn, and the later one was the incident. Okay, so I want 652 to 662. All right. So let's say, can you compare that to, I think it was 662 data set to the simulated Techstream. I could have just copied that, right? And locate the inconsistencies. How's that sound? Right. That's comparing Trooper Paul's 3-point turn data set to the simulated data set that we just looked at. I'm making the most of this month's subscription because
Heck yeah.
I'm not subscribing again after this. I'm only doing it for the sake of creating videos on the topic.
You say that now. Just
Well, I bet you something else comes out wrong. Yeah, I could do.
it's. I mean, you get a lot of bang for your buck.
Well, I'm getting some bang for my buck, but I really got to focus on saving
No, it
for
makes
this
sense.
damn
Yeah.
build. So everything's blown out of cost for me with this build. So it's frustrating me. Right. Comparison user data versus simulated 3-point turn. It looks like there was an issue accessing the time second column in the user's dataset. This could be due to a mismatch in column names. Yeah, you already pointed that out.
Yeah, it's because he omitted it.
He's named the column the same in both. So if I
Oh.
Trooper Paul's dataset, which is, I think I called it all Techstream. All Techstream. Let me show you Trooper Paul's dataset so you can see the comparison. Drag that out. Hide that. Here's Trooper Paul's dataset. Share screen with this one here. I put two together in here. So, oh no, right now it's only showing one. So that's good. So this is the earlier event, which is the 3-point turn. And so this is what it looks like. Oh, let me turn it around. I've got to turn the data around because it's in column format. Table, transpose. There we go.
Gosh, imagine, because what was it in some of the filings from earlier today, where they talk about the fact they found the Massachusetts rule that says that the defense doesn't have to provide certain information, especially in light of
Yeah.
the fact that if the last trial, the information they turned over was used against them by prepping their people. Imagine,
Yeah.
imagine if Trooper Paul had presented this data, and then AJ gets up and literally just drag and drops this into like a vehicle simulator.
Right. Can you see the chart?
Yeah.
That's true ball chart.
Yeah.
Again, it's not showing on my screen that I'm sharing it, but hopefully you guys can see it. So essentially, Trooper Paul's chart, again, it points out, the time the EVCH time is starting here and not at 0, which it should do if you just started the car and to do a reverse.
It's
But
going in
it's the
half
same.
second increments.
It's going in. See how he's got 2 columns named the same, time seconds and then time seconds, but they're showing different values. So that's a screw up. One might be the original data, and then the other one might be the,
Oh my gosh.
the doctored data. I don't know, but that's the first discrepancy that ChatGPT is pointing
Yeah.
out. The next discrepancy that ChatGPT is pointing out is, hang on, let me just go back to the ChatGPT. Hang on, I got too many freaking things open here. I don't want that.
Oh, you have an Apple or a Mac?
Yeah, I do.
Cool.
I'm just learning to use it too, because I just switched from 15, 30 years of using Windows systems to switch to a Mac. So I'm still finding my way around the Mac.
The
Uh,
I have both, and the thing that always throws me off the most is when has the trackpad or a touchpad in the middle, and
yeah,
that in a Windows computer, it's the opposite direction that you drag to go up and down in a window than you do with
right.
a Mac. But like this comes with numbers. That's the name of the app, right? Numbers.
Yeah,
Whereas
it's
Microsoft
the
wants you to pay, a subscription.
right to get the Microsoft version. Exactly. No, all of it is included in Mac. So your word processor, your spreadsheets, all that's included. So
I think doesn't
they
it?
just
Does it
put.
still come with iMovie?
Yes, it still comes with iMovie.
Cool,
That's that's what I make all my videos with, basically, iMovie.
nice.
But I'm learning. I've got to relearn how to do everything. Like on Windows, I could switch tabs.
Oh, Alt Tab.
Oh, actually, I just worked it out just as soon as I said that. That's good. Now I've worked that out. So back to numbers. So that's the first discrepancy that it points out here.
Hmm.
The second discrepancy it points out is the steering angle. It points out the steering angle numbers are incorrect.
Hmm.
The steering turn ratio, I'm not sure which one it is, the steering turn ratio or the signal in degrees. I think it's actually saying both of those are incorrect. And then it talks about these longitudinal G sensors as to whether, whether that's matching with RPMs and
Right.
blah, blah, blah. So if we switch back to ChatGPT window, let's get that one up again and finish reading its analysis on that. It says the steering angle differences in the user data, large erratic steering values, those there, simulated 3-point turn, smooth progressive steering angles. Possible issues: steering changes in user data appear abrupt and inconsistent, unlike the real world 3-point turns. Shift position behavior, logged as 1 or 2, which doesn't match standard Techstream format. simulated. It's saying that Techstream would have actually put P, D, R, or N in the labels for those columns, that it wouldn't have been logged as 1 or 2.
It's literally industry standard, right?
I think that is industry standard, actually.
Yeah.
We can ask it that next. Possible issue: formatting inconsistency suggests manual data entry or third-party system usage.
Mm-hmm.
Acceleration and braking differences. The accelerator stays 0% for a long time despite speed changes.
Of course.
Right. I need to look at that again. Hang on. The accelerator stays 0 for a long time despite speed changes. So let's switch back and look at this again.
Well, you see, Your Honor, obviously John was pushing the car in reverse before he ran around to the other side to get hit by the car.
Okay, so the speed changes. So we're looking at, can you see this chart?
Mm-hmm.
Speed. But you'll be looking at this column, miles per hour.
Mm-hmm.
We'll stick to miles per hour, but in Australia, we'd be looking at kilometers per hour. When you say miles per hour, it seems like she was going really, really fast, but in kilometers per hour, you look at it and you're like, yeah, that's pretty normal speeds. But anyway, and the accelerator opening ratio.
Oh yeah, it's like 0 for like half the time.
Look, 0 opening ratio.
It's just magical.
Revs,
It's a magic carpet.
revs per minute is 1,000. 0 opening ratio, but your revs are 900. How do you get 0 opening ratio and a change in
It's
revs?
impossible.
It's dropping. The revs are dropping down. Revolutions per
Minute.
it is minute, isn't it? And then here it's dropped down even further, but it's still at 0. Opening ratio is still 0. And then it's dropping down. Now it's down to 700 revs per minute, but the opening ratio has moved up to 5.
Yeah.
And then opening ratio increases to 31, but the RPMs are still only 700. Now the opening ratio is halfway, throttle's nearly halfway open, but we still only got 700 RPMs. Now we go up to 1300, which is barely more than this 1000 at 0. We got 50% throttle, 1300 RPMs. Same throttle, but now 1400 PMs.
Wow.
No throttle. Interesting. Very interesting.
Yeah, it's all
So
BS.
let's move to the next analysis, which is, what did it say? In the 3-point turn analysis, accelerator varies gradually as expected in a slow speed turn. Possible issue: user dataset does not show an expected accelerator behavior, suggesting missing or manipulated data. G-force irregularities. In the user data, lateral G fluctuates wildly.
Yeah, like what? She like so let's get this straight. Her car is in free fall off of a cliff.
From 1.72 meters per second squared to 2.72 meters squared, meters per second squared, sudden jumps. In the simulated, it's obviously smooth and progressive.
Mm-hmm.
Inconsistent lateral G-force changes in user data might indicate edited or non-Toyota log data. The user data set does not match the expected behavior of a real 3-point turn. The steering, gear shifting, acceleration, and G-forces are not consistent with real vehicle dynamics. The shift position, labeling, and erratic steering changes. Possible fabrication. Possible fabrication? Oh, that was a question we asked. That's why I said that. Or third-party logging. So that is interesting. What else do you want to know?
I don't know. Actually, my food
I'm
is
just going
getting
to refresh.
cold, but
What'd you say?
Right, I'll let you go and deal with the kids. But thank you for joining us, and appreciate the
yeah,
conversation.
absolutely. We'll do it again
It's
soon.
been, yeah. All right. Bye. 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 Alrighty. So let's get back to our chat questions. So does it keep throwing out? It is not a true 3-point turn because the tow truck incident is not technically a 3-point turn. I actually compared it with the tow truck video footage, and there was multiple turns in that. So there was this rocking motion to free it from the snow, and then it went into that reverse motion once it was free. And so there was that reverse motion. Then it slipped into drive and went forwards, and then its tires weren't completely lined up, so it slipped into reverse and went backwards, and then it straightened its tires up, and then it drove up onto the truck, and then it still wasn't aligned properly, so then it drove back off the truck again and realigned itself, and then it drove back on the truck again. So it doesn't match the tow truck incident, because the tow truck incident was a completely different series of events, essentially. But the first time I asked it that, it was only based on the data that I asked it that. The second time I asked it was based on the video evidence, essentially. And the first time I didn't explain how many times it got readjusted and moved around on the truck either. But with the video evidence, it was more clear about what those positioning of the steering wheel was and the turning of the tires and all that sort of stuff. But it didn't match the tow truck incident either. So is there anything that you guys want me to continue asking the chat GPT? Because I'm open to suggestions now. Anything you like, we'll ask it. If there's anything you want to ask it. Oh, okay. Let's do that. It's offering me, would you like to conduct anomaly detection or deeper statistical analysis to confirm possible data manipulation? Why not? We'll just copy that. And I will say yes. Okay, it's going to do it without me rephrasing it. So sometimes if you leave it a little long, it'll forget what you're talking about, and you got to rephrase it. So we're doing a anomaly detection or deeper statistical analysis to confirm possible data manipulation. It says it looks like there's an issue accessing the steering angle column in the user datasets. I'll correct this and rerun the anomaly. Steering angle anomalies and longitudinal g-force anomalies. What do you say about that? I have displayed the statistical anomalies in your dataset, focusing on steering angle irregularities, longitudinal g-force outliers, lateral g-force inconsistencies, unexplained speed changes without accelerator input. These anomalies indicate potential fabrication or manipulation in the data. Let me know if you'd like a deeper analysis or a visualization. Let's go with a visualization. Can we see a visualization? This I can do for hours. So the steering data anomalies. Alrighty, the longitudinal g-force anomalies. They don't match the steering data. This point here and this point here to here, they kind of match. But the rest of this don't match this. the lateral g-force. So what this is telling me, I think what this is giving me is 656 and 658. So 657, just after 657, let me just look at this data. Trooper Paul's data, 657. So that's these three columns here. Everything just shoots up in the air. Interesting. Very interesting. That's why it's saying it's an anomaly, because that is weird. Here are the visualizations of the anomalies detected in your dataset. Steering angle anomalies. Red points indicate suspicious abrupt changes that are inconsistent with a natural 3-point turn. The red point, anomaly, and then up here, anomaly. Gotcha. And then those anomalies are off the screen. Large sudden shifts in acceleration, deceleration suggest possible fabrication or missing data. Unexpected sharp variations could indicate data manipulation or errors in the logging system. And then speed or increases or decreases without accelerator input suggest gaps or inconsistencies in the data set. Interesting. Anomaly. It's the anomaly Canton triangle. Dun dun dun. So you're agreeing there's only one big steering wheel turn and then a smaller adjustment, right? So even in the case of only a 2-point turn, or even in the case of just doing a U-turn, so you get a J turn, a 3-point turn, or a U-turn, it still doesn't match any of those scenarios. So we can actually ask it that. Would you like to ask it that, Fern? We can ask it that. Let's say, let's ask the same question and say, would it match a U-turn? Here we go. Is it possible? Is it possible the user data set is a U-turn? It's possible, but based on the detected anomalies, there are several inconsistencies that make this scenario unlikely. Let's break it down. The key differences between a U-turn and a 3-point turn is obviously you wouldn't be using reverse in a U-turn. So this is the data set. This is a typical U-turn. This is a 3-point turn, is what it's showing us here. And it's still putting out erratic extreme fluctuations. It's still only pointing out not standard Techstream for the gear shifts, unexplained speed changes, sudden spikes and irregular shifts, abrupt changes and inconsistencies. It says why the data does not match a U-turn. The steering angle is erratic and extreme. A real U-turn would show a smooth steering transition, which is what they said in the 3-point turn. Instead, the data set has wild, unrealistic swings. Shift positions are unusual. A normal U-turn would stay in drive D. The data set only records 1 and 2 instead of PDNR, unrealistic speed and acceleration, and lateral g-force does not follow a U-turn curve. So what about a J-turn? What about I'm not sure if there's a difference between a 3-point, a J, or whatever. A bootlegger. I didn't know that. A J-turn, also known as reverse 180 or a bootlegger, is a maneuver where the vehicle starts in reverse, turns sharply, and spins around the drive. Well, I don't think she did one of those, but let's see. Okay, the J-turn behavior is not R, neutral D. So it is actually pointing at maybe those gear shifts should be there if this was normal calm driving. Like them not being there in the accident would be like jamming it into reverse really fast. So you would skip past that neutral really quickly. It might not record that because the entire system takes a fraction of a second to catch up with what you just did and record it. But in this U-turn case, that wouldn't be, the quick gear changes that you would expect to see in the accident where she jammed it into reverse really quickly. So why the user data does not match a J-turn. Steering angles are unrealistic, no clear reverse to forward position, G-forces are not consistent, and shift positioning format is suspicious. So there you go. That's why it couldn't be a J-turn. I didn't even know what a J-turn was. Will the chat GPT tell me its own interpretation? Let's see. How do you interpret the data set? How do you interpret the data set? Let's say, are there any real world data sets that are similar? How's that? It says the user dataset has unusual characteristics that do not match a 3-point turn, U-turn, or J-turn. Here's how I interpret the data. Steering angle is high, erratic. Yep, we got all of that. The shift positions, we got all of that. The speed and acceleration, we got all that. I want to know, yes, this bit. Are there any real-world databases similar to this? So far, I haven't seen a real Techstream dataset with these exact characteristics. However, some possibilities exist. To add a Techstream logs incomplete or corrupt, aftermarket logging systems, like the ones mentioned earlier. There may have been a sampling issue, deliberately edited data. Your dataset does not resemble a Techstream log or any known driving maneuver. There you go. No known driving maneuver matches this log. Interesting, right? All right, so what does it say next? It says, would you like me to compare this dataset to a real Techstream? Check for potential missing data patterns, analyze the statistical likelihood that this dataset was manually altered. Let's go with that one. Plan C. Was it manually altered? What are the statistical likelihoods? Anyone want to guess while we're waiting for it? Okay, it's telling us the statistical likelihood of manual data alteration. Here are the key findings based on statistical analysis: steering repetitions, expected behavior, detected issue, interpretation. While not extreme, this is higher than expected for real driving. Again, acceleration kurtosis. Real world has a natural distribution. Kurtosis 16 suggests a flattened distribution, meaning the acceleration data is too uniform. And then this could indicate smoothing or interpolation, which is a potential sign of manual alteration. Speed difference variance. It says the variance is very low, suggesting speed changes are too controlled. If the data were manually entered, the speed values might follow a predictable pattern rather than natural fluctuations. Missing time intervals. We know that one's an issue. And then unexpected speed jumps. And the conclusion, moderate likelihood of manual alteration. Dataset exhibits characteristics that suggest possible manual editing, including repeated steering values, flattened acceleration, overly controlled speed variance, and a missing time interval. However, there are no obvious speed jumps without acceleration, which means if it was altered, it was done carefully. Next steps, compare this to a fully verified Techstream dataset. Simulate a natural dataset and compare statistical properties. Investigate whether the missing interval could indicate. Let's compare it to a fully verified set. Let's do that. I think we already have done that, but let's do it again, just for the fun of it. So maybe someone trying too hard to recreate a scenario that didn't happen. Exactly. That's pretty much where we've landed with the Chat GPT every time, essentially. All right. Okay, the user data set and then a verified Techstream data set. So let's have a look at those. So we would see steering variance, acceleration variance, speed variance, speed, and then longitudinal variance and lateral. So you can see how far out this is to a standard situation. And this number, look at this. This is ridiculous to this. So you got to actually remove the decimal part to see how ridiculous that value is. Whoop, just that part before the decimal. 36,000 steering variance, whereas this is only 419. Yeah, so weird, right? Everything's weird. Statistical comparison. User data versus verified Techstream. I have displayed a side by side. Key findings. Again, same key findings. Extremely high variance to a smooth controlled steering. Inconsistent changes compared to natural smooth. And then more erratic speed changes suggest possible missing records and manual adjustment. Obviously, he wanted an erratic speed change because that's a narrative that he was given by Michael Proctor, right? That's right, Fern's mum. But if you do it very quickly, then it won't log it. If you jam it from drive to reverse very quick, it won't log. If you do it slowly and you rest in neutral, then the system, which is behind your actions, fraction behind your actions. It can't go, oh, you're going to go to neutral until you've done it. So it's a fraction behind your actions that the system is logging it. So if you rest in neutral and then go to reverse, then it will log that resting position in neutral because it's had time to catch up with your actions. But if you do it very quickly and you just jam it straight into reverse very fast, then it's going to be registering the reverse position before the neutral even got logged, which is why you often will see that. And I did ask that of the chat GPT, which is in one of the last chat GPT videos. I forget which one now. So but yes, this is definitely, trying to create a scenario that didn't actually happen. So are the two data sets do the two data sets appear to be, I'm terrible at spelling today, appear to be recreating a scenario that did not happen? There we go. Asking the chat GPT. It says there's strong evidence that these data sets do not represent a real-world driving event. Instead, they appear constructed, edited, or selectively logged to fit a specific narrative. So in the steering transitions, it says what would expect in real world and what it's found in the data set. Yes, possible manual data entry or missing records. For that one, a different logging system, possible data gaps, selective omission of events, and G-force behavior does not match any real-world maneuver. Does this data match a three-point turn? Nope. A U-turn? Nope. A J-turn? Nope. Controlled braking event? Nope. Random driving? Nope. There is no real-world maneuver that matches this data set. This suggests it was not recorded from an actual driving event, but instead resembled or assembled or selectively logged. Potential explanation data was altered to fit a narrative. Well, I think we know that. Key missing data may have been removed. Steering data looks artificial. Speed and acceleration do not match, and shift positions are not standard. It is highly likely that these data sets were selectively created to simulate an event that did not actually happen. Key driving parameters do not follow real-world physics. Physics? Physics? What are physics? What's that? Bingo. What's that? So there you go. The dataset's inconsistencies and unusual formatting suggests possible fabrication or manual adjustments. Would you like me to analyze what might have been removed from the missing? Yeah, do that. Not that it's going to help. If it's not real world driving, what could you possibly analyze that's missing? Look for digital fingerprints that might indicate manual data. Look for digital fingerprints. Hang on. Wait. Let's do that one. All right, let's do that one. Look for dirty little digital fingerprints of Trooper Paul. Looks like there's an issue with the decimal precision analysis. Some values may not be in string format. I will fix this and rerun the digital fingerprint analysis. All right. To Fern's suggestion, screenshot that. I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I'm going to ask it to produce us a comprehensive report on everything we've discussed today. And then I'm going to show you how to stick it into Notepad LM and get it to create a discussion about it. How's that? So you get an extra treat today. How to operate my Notebook LM as well. It looks like there's an issue with the precision. All right, we did that. There's still an issue with the... It looks like there are still some numeric columns that are not fully converted to string format. I see what you're saying. Formatting issues. I have displayed the results of digital fingerprint. Decimal precision analysis of most values are a uniform number of decimal places. It may indicate manual entry instead of real sensor data. Interesting. So the sensor data wouldn't be a uniform number of decimal places. That's good to know. If values change in exact repeated steps, this suggests artificial interpolation rather than natural variations. And if steering angles exceed realistic limits, it may indicate fabricated or data formatted issue. So let me ask it to create a report. Can you create a comprehensive report listing all findings, please? It actually says, I'm a robot. You don't need to say please if you do that. So, yes, all these anomalies, right? Anomaly after anomaly. Goody. I presume you're goodying over seeing how the Notepad LM works. So, all right, so here's our report. So what I will do is I will start from the top. And I will copy all of this report. Copy. And then I will go to Notebook LM, and create a new, let me just see that you're seeing what I'm seeing. Here we are in Notebook LM. Now I'm going to add this as a note, paste the report in here. Okay, still a little bit of formatting. Stick a little paragraph here, a little paragraph there. All right. There we go. There's our report. Now, from here, what I do is I turn this into a source. So when I hit the source button, it's going to put it over here as a source, which will then start filling out, some thought patterns on what we're looking at. So convert it to a source. And here it goes. It's thinking. It says, this report analyzes a user-provided dataset of vehicle telemetry data to assess potential manual manipulation. The analysis compared the dataset to verified Techstream logs, examining steering angles, shift positions, acceleration, speed, time, inconsistencies, and anomalies suggesting that the data has been edited. Based on these inconsistencies, the report concludes that the dataset is highly likely to have been manually altered or selectively logged. The report recommends further investigation, including obtaining original Techstream files, and comparing the data to verified driving events to confirm data integrity. All right, how do we want the chat to talk about this? So over here, I've just closed that note, and I'm looking now at generating the conversation. Shall we just generate and see how it ends up? Or would we like to customize the discussion what it's going to focus on, and how it's going to discuss this. So what do you reckon? Shall we focus it, or shall we just let it go? You can customize it. Like in here it says you can focus on a specific source or focus on a specific topic. You can target a specific audience. Like you can tell it what you want the AI hosts to focus on and how you want it to address the situation. So just generate it automatically, see what we get. All right, let's do that. Wing it, rip it. All right, let's ring it, rip it, generate it, see what we come up with. All right, it takes a couple of minutes, so it will generate generally around a 10-minute conversation, but if you give it more and more data, that will make the conversation a little longer, but I generally find it's around about the 10 minutes. Sorry, Karen, you are actually outvoted that time. I apologize. Pretty sure it's going to focus on the strangeness anyway, because that's the only source I gave it. The more sources that you give it, like with the SJC, for example, I gave it the ruling, which is, the one side of the coin. And then I gave it, the whole why that ruling was so freaking awful and disrespectful to juries, and I gave it a whole spiel about that stuff. And then it had two sides of the coin to discuss it. So it was difficult to get it to focus back in on the side that I wanted it to focus on, because it just wanted to keep talking about, the whole SJC thing. Not just the ruling that they made, but the purpose of the SJC and the purpose of the justice system, and like all this side freaking banner I didn't want to talk about. So it was hard. It was hard to get that conversation on track yesterday. But we'll see. We'll see what happens today. I've only given it one source, so I can't see it. I can't see it getting too diverted and into too many directions because I've only given it one source. Here we go. Are we ready? I've got the tab shared, so you should be able to hear it.
Ever wish you could tell someone was like fibbing about how they drive? Just by, looking at the data from their car.
Like a digital lie detector test for driving.
Exactly. Well, get this. Today we're going deep on a report that claims to do just that.
Oh, this is interesting.
Yeah. It analyzes vehicle telemetry data, the kind that tracks your speed, steering, and all that. But there's a catch.
Let me guess. The data's not quite adding up.
You got it. It looks like someone's been messing with the numbers.
A classic case of digital discrepancy. Someone provided this data, but the report's basically saying, hold on, something's fishy here.
So we got to figure out what's going on. Put on our detective hats, examine the evidence.
Exactly. Look for those inconsistencies. See if we can get to the bottom of this digital mystery.
All right, let's dive into the steering data first. The report says the steering variance is a whopping 36,386.79.
Wow, that's high.
Yeah, and get this, normal steering variance is more like 419.80.
So that's a huge EE difference.
Huge EE. It's like comparing, I don't know, a Formula One driver weaving through traffic to your grandma cruising down a country road.
That's one way to put it.
So what could cause such a wild variation?
Well, think about it. When you drive, your movements are generally pretty smooth, right?
Oh.
You don't just, yank the steering wheel back and forth every second.
Unless you're, trying out for a Fast and Furious movie, maybe?
Right. So in normal driving, that smoothness translates into the data. These sudden, drastic jumps we're seeing. That's not how cars behave in real life.
The report even says almost 8% of the steering values are identical. It's like someone just hit Krilla plus C, Krilla plus V over and over.
That's definitely suspicious.
Yeah.
Could point to someone trying to smooth out the data artificially.
To hide something, maybe? Or to make it look less erratic.
Possibly. It's a common tactic.
Yeah.
But there's something even more interesting.
Oh, yeah. Do tell.
Some of the steering values are physically impossible. Like, no car could actually turn that sharply.
So they're not just smoothing things out, they're making stuff up, like saying they made a 90-degree turn at 100 miles per hour.
Yeah, exactly. That kind of fabrication really makes you question the entire data set, doesn't it?
Totally. Okay, so we've got crazy steering movements, copy-paste values, impossible angles. What else is in store for us in this digital whodunit?
Well, let's shift gears and look at the shift position data. And this is where things get really weird.
Okay, lay it on me.
So instead of the usual PRND they'd see in, a real Techstream log,
The system this data is supposedly from.
right, instead of that, we've just got 1 and 2.
1 and 2. It sounds like they were going for simplicity, but it just makes it more suspicious.
Exactly. It's like claiming you got a recording from a fancy studio microphone, but it sounds like it was recorded on a potato. Doesn't add up.
Ah, so it's not just the data itself, but the format, like finding a handwritten note that's claiming to be a typed document.
Precisely. And to add to that, there are no neutral positions in the data at all.
So they never stopped at a light, never hit traffic. Come on.
Right. In real-world driving, you'd expect to see that gear shift in neutral. But here, nothing.
So either there's some kind of driving superhero who never needs to stop,
Or someone's playing fast and loose with the data.
Okay, so we've got steering shenanigans, and the shift position data is, well, raising some serious doubts about the data's origin. Seems like every time we turn a corner, we find more questions. What else is hiding in this digital mystery box?
Let's zoom in on the speed and acceleration data. This is where we find some truly head-scratching stuff.
Hit me with it. I'm ready for more digital detective work.
All right. The speed variance in this suspect data is 42.06. Well, in normal data, it's usually around 23.79, so almost double.
Meaning what?
Well, think about how you drive. You speed up, slow down, maybe hit the gas to merge.
Unless you're on one of those German autobahns. No speed limits there, right?
Right. But even on an Autobahn, you'd see more natural variation in speed. This data is too smooth, almost robotic.
It's like someone programmed a car to drive a perfectly consistent route. Not very realistic.
Exactly. Humans just don't drive like that.
Speaking of smooth, the report mentions this thing called acceleration kurtosis.
Yes.
Sounds a bit technical, to be honest.
It is a bit.
Mm-hmm.
But imagine a roller coaster, with those sharp drops and turns.
Yeah, I get it.
Those sudden changes, those create peaks in the acceleration data.
I'm following.
But here, the acceleration kurtosis is super low, only 0.16.
So what's that tell us?
It means someone might have smoothed out those peaks, like they're trying to, turn a roller coaster into a lazy river.
Trying to hide those sudden bursts of speed, huh?
Exactly. Those bursts that happen in real driving, like when you got to merge quickly or swerve to avoid something.
Sneaky. But wait a minute, if they smoothed it all out, what about those unexplained speed jumps the report mentions? The ones where speed changes without any, accelerator input.
Yes. Those are another big red flag. It's like the car's magically accelerating or decelerating on its own.
So either they're a ghost driver or...
Or, more likely, it's a sign of data manipulation.
So it's not just suspiciously smooth. It's like they're trying to, choreograph a very specific driving performance,
Yep.
right?
You got it. And that leads us to another fascinating aspect of this data, the timestamps.
Ooh, time travel. Sign me up.
Not quite time travel, but we do have a significant time gap in the data. 7 minutes and 55 seconds are just gone.
Like a missing scene in a movie. What happened during that time?
Exactly. Was the data intentionally left out? Was it never recorded in the first place?
If it was deleted, why?
Right.
So many questions.
Right. And the answers could be very revealing.
Okay, so we've got missing time. What else?
Well, there's also this tiny but super important detail, a missing 0.5-second interval.
Half a second. Really? Seems pretty minor.
It's small, but think about it. This Techstream system, it logs data continuously.
So even half a second missing is like a dot glitch in the matrix.
Exactly. It shouldn't be there.
So even the smallest detail can have big implications when it comes to this kind of data.
Absolutely. And these time discrepancies just add to the overall picture that this data has been messed with.
Okay, so we've got steering shenanigans, confusing shift positions, manipulated speed data, and now time warps. This is getting more complicated by the minute.
And just when you thought it couldn't get more mind-boggling, let's talk about G-forces, the forces that make roller coasters so fun.
Oh, G-forces. Now we're talking about the stuff that can pin you to your seat or make you feel weightless.
Yeah.
What kind of G-force acrobatics are we dealing with here?
Well, the report focuses on the longitudinal G-force variance.
Which is?
The force you feel when you brake or accelerate.
Gotcha. So what about it?
The suspect data shows a variance of 2.01.
That sounds like a lot.
It is. In the verified data, it's more like 0.00056.
Wow. Okay, so we're talking about way more aggressive braking and accelerating than normal.
Exactly. It's as if the driver was constantly slamming on the brakes, then flooring it. Jerky, uncomfortable. Imagine being a passenger in that car.
I think I'd get carsick just thinking about it. But seriously, wouldn't that be super obvious to anyone in the car?
You'd think. Which is why this discrepancy is so strange. And get this, the lateral G-force variance.
That's the force when turning, right?
You got it. Well, that's 1.39 in the suspect data versus 0.03 in the verified data.
So, like, they're taking every corner at super speed.
Basically, the data suggests the car is experiencing these crazy, almost impossible sideways forces during every turn.
So we've gone from suspicious driving to, like, full-on action movie stunt driving.
Pretty much. And there's one last intriguing detail. We need to look at the decimal precision of the data.
Decimal dot what now?
Decimal precision. Think about it like this. When you measure something with a ruler, sometimes you get those nice round numbers. But sometimes you've got those extra bits.
Like 5.2 centimeters or whatever.
Right, exactly. Real-world measurements aren't always perfectly even. And the same goes for data collected by sensors. It's messy, with variations in how many decimal places you see.
Okay, so what about this data?
Well, the decimal precision is strangely uniform in the suspect data.
Meaning?
It's almost like someone manually rounded all the numbers instead of, letting the sensors record what they actually picked up.
So it's too perfect.
Exactly. Too perfect to be real. It's like trying to pass off a mass-produced print as an original painting.
I'm sensing a theme here. So this data artist wasn't very good at hiding their tracks, huh?
Not at all. And all these inconsistencies we've found, the steering, the speed, the time gaps, now this decimal thing, it paints a pretty clear picture. This data has been manipulated. The big question now is, why?
Welcome back. So last time, things got a bit, complicated.
That's one way to put it. We found a whole lot of inconsistencies in this data. Like, a lot.
Yeah, it's almost like someone took a normal data set and just decided to, I don't know, have some fun with it.
Well, fun for them, maybe. But it definitely makes our job more challenging.
Right. So now the million-dollar question is, why? What are they trying to pull?
What's the motive, right? Trying to hide something. Create a totally different story. It's like we're in a digital mystery novel, and we got to figure out who the culprit is.
And what their end game is.
Exactly. Thankfully, the report gives us a few ideas for where to go next, some recommendations for how to, keep investigating this whole mess.
Oh, more clues. Tell me everything.
Well, first off, they really stress the importance of getting our hands on the original Techstream files.
The raw data, basically.
Right, because remember, we're only working with, like, a processed version of the data.
Right.
But those raw files, those could have a ton of extra information hidden inside.
Oh, yeah, metadata, right. It's like the digital equivalent of fingerprints.
You got it. It can tell you all sorts of things about the data's origin, when it was recorded, what software was used, even the ID of the device that collected it.
So if someone was messing with the data, the metadata could expose them.
Potentially. Like having a secret camera that recorded everything they did, we might be able to figure out exactly when and how the data was changed.
Okay, so we need to get a hold of those raw files. What else?
Well, remember that big time gap we talked about? That 7-minute and 55-second chunk that just vanished.
Yeah, it's been bugging me. It's like watching a movie with a scene cut out.
Right. So the report recommends digging into that. See if we can figure out what happened during those missing minutes.
Was it intentionally deleted? Or, I don't know, never recorded at all? Did they take a coffee break? What's going on there?
Exactly. Figuring out what happened there could give us huge clues about why the data was changed in the first place.
Okay, raw data, missing time window, anything else. What's next on our detective to-do list?
Well, they also suggest comparing the suspect data to other verified driving data. Think of it like, I don't know, running a fingerprint through a database.
So we're basically seeing if the patterns in this data, the steering, the speed, the G-forces, match up with how people actually drive in real life.
Exactly. It's kind of like trying to pass off a fake painting as the real deal, right?
Wow.
If the brushstrokes are all wrong, the colors don't match, the composition is off, it's pretty obvious it's a forgery.
Right, right. So this data comparison could be a game changer.
Big time.
Okay, so we're building quite the investigation here, but I gotta ask, why should our listeners care? What's the bigger picture here?
That's the key question, right? This isn't just about some weird data from a car.
There's gotta be more to it.
Right. This is about the implications of, messing with information, especially in a world where data affects almost every decision.
Okay, I see where you're going with this, but give me some real-world examples. How could this kind of data manipulation play out?
Well, let's say someone's trying to, I don't know, fight a speeding ticket.
Mhm.
Or maybe they're disputing an insurance claim after an accident. They could try to use this doctor data as proof.
Whoa. So they could get away with something they did.
Potentially. Yeah. It's basically like creating a digital alibi. And it goes beyond just individual cases, too. Think about self-driving cars.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The data used to, train those self-driving systems is messed up. That could be dangerous, right?
Big time dangerous. A car making decisions based on bad information. That's terrifying.
It is. And it's not just self-driving cars, right? This kind of thing, it affects everything. Finance, healthcare, you name it. The whole world relies on data these days.
So this isn't just a tech problem, it's a societal problem.
Exactly.
We're talking about trust, about truth. If we can't rely on the data we're given, then what can we rely on?
Exactly. We can't just accept the data at face value. We have to
Yeah.
be critical, ask questions, look for inconsistencies.
Be skeptical.
Yeah, it's like
Yep.
we need to become data detectives. Scrutinize everything, hold those in charge accountable.
Easier said than done, though, right? For the average person, it can feel pretty overwhelming.
It is a challenge, for sure. But, we could start by learning more about data, how it's collected, how it's used, all of that. We got to understand the whole picture.
Data literacy, you mean?
Yeah.
Sounds like that's a pretty important skill these days.
It really is.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the technical stuff either. It's about thinking critically,
Hmm.
questioning the information we see, not just taking everything at face value.
So like learning to read between the lines, but for data.
Exactly. And while we can all do our part to become more data literate, we also need those big institutions, the ones collecting all our data, to step up.
Right. More transparency, better security, all of that.
You got it. We need regulations, ethical guidelines, the whole 9 yards. It's a team effort.
Individuals and institutions working together to create a world where data is used responsibly.
Exactly.
This deep dive has been eye-opening, to say the least. We started with some weird car data and ended up talking about, like, the future of information.
It's amazing how one little case can lead to such big questions, isn't it?
It really is. And we're not done yet. So we spent the last 2 parts digging into this whole manipulated data thing, a real digital mystery, huh?
It has been fascinating, hasn't it? Seeing how easily data, something we think of as objective and all, can be twisted.
Yeah. It's like that saying, there are 3 kinds of lies: lies, damned lies, and statistics. But hey, at least now we've got a better idea of how to spot those statistical tricks, right?
Exactly. The more we understand those techniques, the better equipped we are to, be critical of the information thrown at us.
So let's take a step back for a second and think bigger picture. We've talked about what could happen if this data is used in the wrong way. But what about the why behind it all? Why would someone even bother doing this?
That's the million-dollar question, isn't it?
Yeah.
The report doesn't, give us a straight answer,
Right.
but it does make us think, was this about avoiding blame? Creating a false sense of security? Or was it something, I don't know, more sneaky?
It's like a digital whodunit. We're looking for clues and algorithms and data points instead of fingerprints and DNA.
Exactly. And just like a good mystery, there might be more to the story than we see at first glance. Layers of deception, complicated motives.
And it's not just about the person who changed the data, right? It's about the systems that let it happen, the whole environment that makes it easy to hide the truth. It makes you wonder, are we making things too easy for these data manipulators?
You've hit on a really important point. We tend to focus on the bad guys, right? The individuals. But we need to look at the bigger picture, at the systems and structures that almost encourage this kind of behavior.
It's a good point. And think about all the data we create every single day. Our online stuff, our financial transactions, our medical records, it's all vulnerable.
Absolutely. This case is a wake-up call. We can't just sit back and assume everything's fine. We have to be proactive about protecting ourselves, about demanding more from the people who have our data.
Okay, so what can we actually do? It feels like a losing battle sometimes. So much data, so many ways it can be misused.
I get it. It can feel overwhelming, but it's not hopeless.
Yeah.
The first step is, education. We need to understand how data works, how it's collected, analyzed, all of that.
Data literacy, you mean?
Exactly.
Yeah.
And it's not just about the technical side either. It's about critical thinking, questioning what we see, not just blindly trusting everything.
So like learning to read between the lines, but for data.
You got it. And while that's important for individuals, we also need the big institutions, the ones with all our data, to be more responsible.
More transparency, tougher security measures, those kinds of things.
Exactly. We need better regulations, clear ethical guidelines. It has to be a team effort,
Individuals being savvy, institutions doing the right thing, working together to make sure data is used for good, not for, tricking people.
Couldn't have said it better myself. This deep dive, it's taken us on quite a journey. From some odd car data to, well, some pretty big questions about how we handle information in the digital age.
It's amazing how one little thing can lead to such a huge conversation, right? But it's a conversation we need to have because data is everywhere and it's not going away. We have to be smart about it.
So there you go. That's how you do it.